Hi guys, it is Dom here from Soundscape Magazine. Just had a wonderful chat with Lee Jennings of the Funeral Portrait about the inspirations behind new single Voodoo Doll, their older material, and so much more. We talked about UK bands, artists, creative inspirations, positive affirmations. I'm really pleased with this one. I can't wait to see this band over in the UK soon. Thank you to Lee for his time. I think he was at Disneyland hanging out in his car, so it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for you guys. To you guys for watching. Thank you. Really appreciate it. We'll see you soon. So Lee, obviously you just mentioned there that you've got a new song out, you've got some new material out. But before we delve too deeply into that, I want to ask you the question of how you define success, because you sat in your car at Disneyland. That is successful to me. However, and you're enjoying life. You look like you're having a great time, which is awesome. So that's success to me. But how do you define success? What does it mean to you as a person and as an artist? And are they one and the same thing?
So that's actually an incredible question. I love that question. So for me, success is, I guess, happiness. I think if you're not happy but you're playing to like arenas or these like millions of kids, every tour, like, making millions of dollars, like what that's not really success. That's just, oh, okay, maybe wealth, I'll call that wealth, not success, because I think to me success is happiness. And so like spending time here at like Disney or spending time with my family or my friends and writing music and performing music, that to me is what makes me happy. So why wouldn't I want to do that as much as possible? So, for me, I think getting to like release this new song and do like all of these things that surround me is happiness. And I've been very lucky over the last few years to just really dive in and really just focus on making what is actually making me happy.
Yeah.
And that being the band, that being my family, my friends, my partner, and my trips to Disney and my dog. But also like it's great now that COVID's gone too. Well, gone, but COVID is kind of, we can go and tour and stuff. And that to me is such a big thing. And so happiness, to answer your question, let's say happiness is the key to success. As cheesy and corny as that sounds, I really think you cannot be successful until you are truly happy with yourself and who you are and where you are.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. And like I say, not many better locations than Disneyland, Lee. So thank you again. Thank you so much for that reflective answer. I'm going to get you to reflect a little more. We will talk about Voodoo Doll and the new stuff. And I also want to go back and get your thoughts on some of the older stuff in a second. But before that, I want to ask you to kind of take me back to what you've learned about yourself between, because again you started the band a while ago, you've changed and developed a lot, like you're probably a different person now in a lot of ways. So what have you learned about yourself from the beginning of the funeral portrait, excuse me, from the beginning of the band, who you were when you started out, to who you are now? What have you learned? How have you changed and developed as a person?
Honestly, a lot. So basically started the band back in like 2014.
Yeah.
We signed to a pretty small label like right off the bat, and stuff started rolling out really fast. We started doing a lot of touring, like small touring and stuff like that. And then I had at the time I had kind of like a completely different outlook on it, kind of like what we just talked about not being truly happy, not being truly me and myself. And I think that was something that from the get-go I always kind of preached, was this: be you, be just who you are, and that's okay, that kind of thing. The whole like, the being original and just being yourself is key to anything. And I think that is something that from the beginning of TFP to now has changed the most, is that I can truly feel like not just the people that I have in my life, as in the band members and the label and the management and the booking, all of that stuff aside, I think myself, I've come to be find my own who I am and being comfortable in my own skin, and all of that kind of thing is the most important difference from the beginning of the band to the current, not the current existence, like this moment, this song, everything.
Yeah, yeah. So you kind of feel like you've come full circle a little bit from where you were to where you are now. Yeah, that's what it sounds like to me.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Awesome, awesome. So again, looking back, just briefly to Moment of Silence and what that record did for you, because again, you've got the streams and you've got all this, you've toured around, you've done all that, and obviously Moment of Silence was a point in time for you, and obviously you've released stuff since. But how do you look back on that period of your musical life and what that record did for you, and I guess you know because it brought you a level of acclaim, I guess. I don't know if you feel that's the right term, but certainly as an outsider, because you look at streams and you look at how people receive stuff, and certainly it did a lot for you.
Yeah. So I think all of our older material, it was weird because when we first started, the EP that we released was, we were just, like the early 20-year-olds, just, hey, we want to be in a band, and try not to be the most local band. And so we just started fully like diving in and just writing and just being like, okay, the EP did well, it did okay. And then we went to do a full length and it was like, oh, okay, people actually like this stuff. This is cool. And then I think it was hard because I think everybody in the band at the moment was going through something in their lives, as every early 20-year-old kind of does. Where they're like, do I really want this in my life? Not, do I really want these people in my life too? Do I really want whatever it may be, right? That lifestyle of being in a band or whatever it is, and not to speak on their behalf or, whatever, but I think for where we were, the EP and the record did something that was like special to me, that made me want to realize that this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And that was kind of the turning point, as then when kind of like I call it TFP 1.0 and then TFP 2.0. So
Yeah,
when TFP 2.0 started happening and we released like songs like The Crash and Flowers in the Attic and Paper Mache Man, and then it fully turned into Holy Water. And then Holy Water is where things just like totally completely changed, and I think that was like a moment of like, oh wow, I'm glad I didn't give up on this dream that I had.
yeah, yeah. So you've gone through a real evolution like that again. Point oh, point one, I love it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Different points of the evolution. That's fantastic. I also want to talk about. Obviously, we talked about success, and I guess there. What we've just talked about comes into this. The legacy of TFP. And now, do you pay much attention to that word? I suppose it can be a bit of a dirty word, like success, to different people. Do you think about the legacy you're going to leave as an artist and the band is going to leave at all? Does it
Yes.
concern you? Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna cut you off there. Yes.
Okay.
Because that is, I think that is something that, because the bands that I love the most are so worried about their legacy, not as in like being famous, you know what I
Mm.
mean? But being as in, this is more than just a band for us. You know what I mean? Like, and I know the bands that I like, of course, like My Chemical Romance, but not just My Chem. You got the smaller bands that are like them, like Creeper and like Don Broco, and like you'll have, like there's so many that I could just keep going on and on. And most are from, not here in America,
Yeah.
because American bands, I don't know what it is about American bands that they just, most of them just were like, oh, we're just a band. We're gonna just dress in shorts and short sleeves, and just, not care what we look like or what our music sounds like. We're just gonna release music, whatever. Like, don't care. But I feel like the more theatrical bands are from Europe, like they're from not here in America. So for me growing up, I always thought about a legacy, right? But not just, because I don't care about fame or anything like that. And if that happens, cool, one day, sick, whatever. For right now, what I care about is releasing the best material that we can. And that goes not just from the music, that means the music videos, that means the images, as in photos that we take of the band. It means even down to how we post on social media is part of this bigger picture. And that's kind of what this, starting with Voodoo Doll especially, is portraying and bringing more and more in, is this larger than life scale band than just a dude sitting in his car at Disney. So
Yeah, I mean that moves on nicely to my next question. Really was, the TFP visual is so striking. Obviously, it does take elements of those bands that you mentioned, but again, you've always been a very visual band, from my knowledge. And how much emphasis, you have answered that in brief in the previous question, but how important is the image of TFP, an image to you, I guess, because you can't speak for the rest of the band, but to you personally, how important is that image and that brand, I guess, of TFP?
yes, and that's what we treat it as. It is a brand, because that's what we're creating. We're not just creating a band. We're creating kind of like of as weird and as funky as it sounds, like a cult, almost like this followership of people that are like-minded, that understand, and that want to just be a part of something. And that here, especially, it's weird because, you know here in America, there's just not a lot of bands like that. There's just really is not. And I think a lot of that is just our culture, too. But I just don't know. For me, I overthink. I think that's a big thing. Is I think I overthink everything, um, which is kind of good, but at the same time, I can be like my worst enemy when it comes to overthinking. And that's why, like, we didn't release a lot of material even when we were kind of unsigned for a minute, because we spent about, like, I think it was like 3 years, that we were just like unsigned, and we didn't release anything because we wanted it to be perfect, and we wanted to have the budgets and whatever it is to do what we needed to. So we, like, held on to so many songs forever that probably will never see the light of day. But for us, it was just like, is this good enough to release? Let's not. Is this good enough to release? Let's not. And so I think for us, if it's not something that I will be very proud of, especially now. Like, older stuff's a little different because I can't go back in time, right? Like, I can't go back in time to 2014 and be like, guys, I don't think we should have released that music video. Like, that,
Yeah.
who cares? But I can tell future me, though, that, hey, take your time, really develop this character, really develop the sound, really develop the video, really develop the photo shoot, and do it to the fullest. Um, there is something that what I will always tell myself is that nobody will ever care as much as you care. And I think that is something that I have a lot of, like, younger bands that'll hit me up, or
Yeah.
musicians will be like, so what's the big thing? What's the secret sauce? And I'm like, listen, no one will care as much as you care. No manager, no booking agent, no label, your family, no, your partner, whatever it is, your dog, no one will care. And I am very happy where I have band members that feel the exact same way as I do. Because this isn't, because especially in modern day music, a lot of bands are just one guy now,
Yeah,
where
that's
the other
true.
guys just show up and it's that. But we're a very big team where we have a group chat that is going on between us all the time about not just ideas, but just whatever. But it's one gigantic team working towards this goal, instead of just one person randomly going in the studio and just working on it. So
Yeah, yeah, sort of a unit in that way. Yeah, that's
exactly.
that sounds, it sounds great, man. And I want to pick up on a phrase you used there, and that was the character. And working on that. Now, I'd like to sort of I'd like for you to kind of give me a little bit of insight into your inspirations. Obviously, you mentioned a couple of musical ones there, but what kind of makes you tick in terms of film, in terms of locations? Obviously, Disneyland might be one, but what is it?
Exactly.
If you had to kind of put the ingredients into this character that you've developed, and this project brand, etc. What are some of the ingredients that you put in there that aren't necessarily musically related? So movies, film, locations, spaces, people, places, things like that.
Of course. So I think a lot of it comes from what not just listened to, but what I was into when I was growing up. So a
Yeah.
lot of that is musical theater. A lot of that is, um, my whole early childhood to up to, like my teens, was all about musical theater and opera and very just dramatic, anything very dramatic and larger than life, and that no matter what it is, I'll probably enjoy it. If it's a little corny, I'll enjoy it, and that's very much so. And that's like the whole Disney thing, my obsession with Disney and being what the internet likes to call a Disney adult is very much so who I am. But at least I at least try to be a little bit less about it, but I'll like sit there and listen to podcasts on it, and stuff. And it's just interesting to me. That's like to me, it's my hobby. Where, cause like my band, most of the time a band is, I think, someone's hobby, but it's not. That's literally like my life. I spend every waking moment on it. So now I think, growing up, I grew up with a single mother, and my grandparents. I was very lucky, had my grandparents involved too. But I think that does change who you are and evolves you into being a certain type of person. Some people may call it good, some may people call it bad. I don't care. I think it was for the good because I grew up with so much love and so much acceptance that I know a lot of people don't get. And that's something that the funeral portrait especially is about, because I am very lucky where I got that love. I know so many young kids and teens and even adults, that don't get that.
Mm.
And so anything in the media that is like loving and fun and probably a little dark, because of course, like anything that Tim Burton has touched, from, not just, Beetlejuice, but, in his Batman movies, the older stuff, but of course, Nightmare Before Christmas and all of that stuff. And it's because of he is an artist, as corny and lame, I think some people might call it. I think for me, that's like what I grew up with. I grew up with the dark side of media. And I think that's because my mom was like, like one of those darker, gothy almost ladies, in the 80s. So I think she grew up going to shows and stuff like that. So like I got kind of like a generation down, from her. All
Mm.
these second, I got to like witness these things because my mom really liked them.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Again, thank you again, Lee, for that reflection, man. Just nice to hear about some of your background there. Two or three more questions then
Yeah, of
before we
course.
finish. I want to touch on something you mentioned there. About how, like, again, you had that love and support growing up, and there's a lot of young people that don't have that now. Perception in conversations I have, perception comes up a lot now. What would be your message to any young person who is perhaps looking at what you're doing, looking at the band and going, well, I'm never going to be where Lee is. I'm never going to have those opportunities. I'm never going to do that. And they may be comparing themselves to you a little bit. And I wanted to ask, your perception on that. Have you ever done that? And what would be your message to anybody who is doing that with you and the band, and perhaps thinking they can't get to where you're at and they'll never get there? Because again, the streams, the images, and all that stuff they see.
So that is something that's very it's scary, because I look at numbers often, as
Mm.
I am the business guy in the band. Um and it is scary. And every single day I look at our streaming numbers and I compare it to other people, and I stopped when we released this song. I stopped. I
Okay.
said, there's no one else in this world but us. Because again, this isn't a competition. As much as people will say it's a competition, it's not. Who cares? There's so many fans out there. There's so many different types of people out there that you will find your niche, or you'll find your crew, you'll find your cult and your people, and you can do it yourself. And that's the thing too, is, man, I got halfway lucky on some of this stuff, but at the same time, there's so much of it that this band has worked so hard of. Committed, we have just given up everything else in our lives to make sure this works.
Yeah.
We have no plan B. There is nothing else. None of us have college degrees. None of that. We are literally 110% into the funeral portrait. And if it doesn't work, well, guess what? It's not gonna work. Because if you like fully put yourself into it, it's gonna happen. And I look at there's bands that of course I look up to that I'm like, oh, I wish I could have that tour slot, or I wish I could have that, you know. But there's no such thing as deserving something. That is something that you always have to remember. No one deserves anything. There is something called luck, always. But most of the time it's hard work. Most of the time it's just putting in the hours, or them just being in a different location than you, being at the right place at the right time. Doesn't mean that it can't happen for you though too. And I think everybody's time to shine can happen and will happen as long as you put in the work. It might be 10 years from now, or it might be a week from now. And I think, I look up to a band, of course, I'm sure everybody ever now knows them, but Ice Nine Kills. I mean, I used to be a local promoter in my hometown, and I used to run like a really small club, like 200 cap room, and I booked Ice Nine Kills maybe 3 or 4 times, and 5 kids would come out, and I'd give them $50. You know what I mean? And they'd be like, huh? Okay, Spencer would be like, "Hey, thanks, man, for having us always," and they'd sell maybe $100 in merch, $200 in merch or something. But guess what? They kept at it and kept at it and kept at it, and now they are going to be one of the biggest bands in the world. They
Yeah.
just, they did like 3 or 4 shows with Metallica. It
Yeah.
doesn't get bigger than that,
No,
and that's
absolutely.
because they believed in it, and that's it too. Is if as long as you believe in it, other people will believe in it, and it will work.
Absolutely. I love that message. And I'm feeling quite positive, like chatting to you, man. I love it.
Of
I'm gonna come away from this feeling pretty motivated and positive. So I appreciate that. Before we do the plugging bit at the end of the chat,
Yeah.
you mentioned obviously Voodoo Doll is new, it is out there. What in terms of the new material and the direction you guys are going in? To what degree is Voodoo Doll a representation of that? Is it a perfect representation of where you are, or can we expect a slight left turn on the new stuff, on the further new stuff?
So yeah, yeah, no, that's actually, so we decided we wanted to do a record, which this record has been insane to make because it's taken us basically 3 years. And a lot of that is because of COVID, right? A lot of that because we like were literally going into the studio that week when we were told, hey guys, yeah, so all these tours just canceled, and I don't think it's smart for you guys to go out to the studio. So we're like, okay, so what does that mean? And then we were like, oh, we'll just wait like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and we'll do it again. We'll start it up. And I was like, okay, cool. Sitting on my butt, playing video games, going, I started like a little gym in my backyard with two of my band, like Homer and Rob, my bass player and drummer. We would like go out there and like exercise and just have fun, do whatever for like 3 weeks. And then it was time again. And we were like, okay, let's go to the studio. And it was like, oh no, it's not ready. And we were like, oh no, like
Yeah,
it just got worse and worse. And we were just like, okay. So we started like, working on the record more. And then I think we kind of took a look at the songs that we had, and we had a lot of songs on the record. We had like, we probably wrote, not fully out, around 50 songs. And we're like, yo, let's stop and let's pick the best ones. And so we just picked whatever felt what was the funeral portrait. So there's some ballads on there. There's some heavier kind of material. There's, nothing too heavy. Some like rock anthem. Everything kind of has like an anthemic vibe to it. So like Voodoo Doll has kind of like an arena rock kind of sound to it, and that's definitely like what it is. The whole record sings like an arena rock like band, and that's because that's where we want to be, and that's who we are, and that's the theater aspect of it. For me, we have to be in an arena to perform this record live, so for us, we were just like, let's choose what feels best. And so we have a lot of really cool different vibes on it, but most of it sings like Voodoo Doll. I think Voodoo Doll is a good one to start with. I don't think it was anybody's first pick. See, that's what's so weird, is because none of us, when we started listening to it, I was like, oh, I love Voodoo Doll. Like, I knew it. And I think two of us were like, yeah, we love Voodoo Doll. So, but we were like, I don't think it's going to be single. I don't think it's going to be single. And then, like, the label started picking singles, and they were like, yo, Voodoo Doll's first. And I was like, what? Like, that's first? Okay,
yeah,
let's go. Like, let's do it. And then it's weird because I think it really helps us with a lot of our older fans that love the like original stuff because it's super dark sounding. but it helps with the newer fans that like Holy Water. That's a little bit more radio friendly vibe to it. So I'm excited to see what's next. We'll get there when we get there.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Obviously, we're in the UK, and you know what's next for you could mean anything. Obviously, the material is out there for people in the UK and all over the world to listen to. But what is your message for fans of TFP in the UK? And you know, is there potential for you guys to get over here at some point?
God, so this is so weird because like on Spotify and everything, like the UK is like right under the States. You know what I mean? Like they're maybe like 5,000 listener difference there. And like that, and for a band like us, like that's like kind of funky, you know?
Yeah,
So because normally it's like a crap load more in the States or wherever you're from, right? And like, because I bet you if you looked up like creepers, it would be like a lot in the UK, but not a lot in the US, same thing. But it's like for us, it's weird. So I think the reasoning is because we know we're we would love to come over there. And I believe that we're about to seal a deal with like a European agent and all of that to like get everything together. So that way next year it is going to happen. I do
nice,
know next year it is happening. I don't know the tour just yet, but it is going to happen because I
awesome,
got the text being like from our manager, you got to 100% have your passports, right? And I'm like, okay, sick. So
nice.
they're slowly working on making it happen. And we will do whatever it takes to get over there because I really believe that that is where we're gonna find the voice of this
Mm,
band.
mm,
Which is weird. It's weird to think about, but for us, especially with touring here in the States, especially being smaller, is a little different now.
yeah,
But it's funny because I'll see bands like Static Dress or Holding Absence or stuff like that go on tour, and play these like smaller clubs, but they'd sell out.
yeah,
Where if they did that here in America, shoot, you know what I mean? Like you would get 30 kids a night,
yeah.
So I think live music is just so much different every other part of this world except for the States.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you make, and obviously we look forward to seeing you over here, and I'm sure it's going to be an awesome time. Is there anywhere you'd like to visit? Is there any place that you're kind of excited to try, or a location you really want to go to when you're over here?
So I don't really know. So it's hard because so I like grew up always wanting to like of course it's not in the UK, but I always wanted to go to Japan.
Yeah,
So that was like a thing because I was like a big Pokemon fan and everything. So for me, I was just like, oh my God, like I want to go to Japan. And then it like was like, wait, bands tour Japan. Wait, I could go there one day. So but I've always like my family's basically lived in Germany for so long. They lived there because of the Air Force. My grandfather
right.
was there and my mom was there for like 6 years. So it would be cool to go and visit places, especially like, and then go to like France and go to London and all these places that my family has talked about for so long because they got to visit all of these places. So
Yeah,
like they have like firsthand experience being told instead of just me looking at like videos or whatever it is, like of
yeah.
a band touring there or, growing up and watching movies or something. So it's cool if one day we can go there and I could take photos and send it to my grandfather or something and be like, look, hey, we're at that place that you've talked about before, So
Yeah, man.
hopefully I think it's gonna happen. So oh well no, I know it's gonna happen. Let's put it there.
Absolutely, absolutely. The positive affirmation there, Lee. I appreciate it. I dig it, and I'm so excited to potentially see you guys over here. Again, before we finish, the plugging bit. We have reached the plugging bit of the interview. So, for fans in the UK, fans all over the world, what is it? Where you want people to go? What do you want people to check out? And where can people find you? And yeah, what do you want to plug?
So the easiest way to find the band is we have the world's easiest name. It's literally called The Funeral Portrait. And our newest song is called Voodoo Doll. It's kind of funny because it's kind of blowing up a little bit and we're doing pretty well. So I'm like pretty hyped on it. So you can go to Spotify, you can go to YouTube, you can go to Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter.
Yeah,
Just type in The Funeral Portrait and you'll see the tall guy with the green hair. and in a priest outfit, some sort of priest outfit, and I'll be doing like the praying hand
Yeah.
sign, and that's, you know, you're in the right place. You know you're in the right place.
Cool, cool. Well, Lee, I'll let you get back to Disneyland. Thank you so much for making the time for me. I really appreciate it, and look forward
Of
to seeing you
course.
over here in the UK sometime soon.
Yes, it's I'm so hyped. We're gonna hang out. You and I.
I look forward to it, man. I look forward to it. Cheers, buddy.